election.
Something a long time ago, the taxes cost more than the
Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to our special Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting. This is the meeting of the Morrison County Special Board of Appeal and Equalization. The board is made up of appointed citizens, including the 5 county commissioners, a trained Board of Appeal and Equalization member, and 1 member familiar with real estate and/or valuation. This meeting is between the board and the appellant. It is the task of the board to review facts and make decisions as it deems just. The county assessor and staff are present to assist the board in its duties. The purpose of the Board of Appeal and Equalization is to provide a fair and objective forum for property owners to appeal their property valuation or classification. This board has the authority to change the valuation or classification of a property for the current assessment year. Taxes or prior year assessments are not within the jurisdiction of the board. The law provides that all property must be valued at market value. Factors other than market value issues should not affect the market value determined by the Board of Appeal and Equalization. Any decisions made by the board must be supported by facts and Minnesota law. The burden of proof rests with the property owner, who must present factual evidence to disprove the assessor's value or classification. Each agenda item is scheduled for 15 minutes. The board will hear all appeals before making any decisions. Once your item has been heard, you may leave if you wish. The board will send a letter to all the appellants to inform them of the decision of the board. So with that, gentlemen, any questions on our responsibilities here? If not, seeing none, we will go to our appointments as scheduled. First on our agenda here is Jerry and Joanne Drellick, and this is parcel number 22.0406.001. So before us, we have the property owner's appeal and summary. Should I read through this?
You certainly can, or Mr. Drellick can come up and approach the board and let him know what his concerns are.
Okay. Jerry, good afternoon. If you'd please come up to the table.
Good afternoon, Jerry.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Mr. Chair, I think we should read this first and then Jerry.
Okay, so gentlemen, I'll read the appeal summary. This property is also being brought before the Special Board of Appeal and Equalization as an assessor's recommendation. Jerry contacted the Land Services Office prior to the local Board of Appeal and equalization meetings to discuss his value. The appraiser visited his property and determined that the appraisers were valuing a deck that is no longer there and that the house should have more physical depreciation. The assessor's office made a recommendation, or is making a recommendation to the local board of equalization to reduce the value of Mr. Drellick's property by $11,900 for the deck value and for an increase in depreciation of the dwelling. The Pike Creek Township Local Board of Appeal and Equalization's decision was to make no change. The estimated market value remains at $200,000 and the classification remains as a split class of agricultural homestead for the land and agricultural non-homestead for the house, garage, and 1 acre for the 2022 assessment, taxes payable in 2023. Jerry, thank you for being with us. I will give you the opportunity to speak to us on what we just heard here and your thoughts.
All right, thank you very much. The reason why I came in, my evaluation notice that's dated 2023. In 2022, the property was valued at $139,200. For 2023, it's going up to $193,400, a $54,200 increase. I purchased this property 2 years ago in 2010. I paid $110,000 for the property. Yes, the property adjoins my farm, and I wanted to buy it for my own use. So the valuation had gone up that much, $54,200, and I went to the Pike Creek Town Hall and was there at the meeting, and they agreed to reduce it by $11,900. I still think that is not enough. To raise the valuation from $139,200 to $193,400 and only take off $11,900, no, not when I paid $110,000. That's my view. When I bought the property, I also conformed to county guidelines, and I put in a new $11,000 septic system. That was the rules. So I spent the money. It's got a new septic system in it. If that adds value to the property, I don't see why, because we all got to have a septic system. If the prior owner would still have owned it, he could have went probably another 20 years with the old system. But being I bought it, I put a new system in, but I still think the value is too high.
Questions? Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you. This is for a lady down in there. I'm assuming that you did comparisons throughout the last year as far as what sales are going.
Correct.
And could you give that to the board, please? And
Sure, if I just want to make sure that I'm clear, and you as well. The local board made no change.
That's correct.
Okay. So, yeah, Pike Creek did see a significant increase in all the houses that were there. When we had sales, and those sales, the median sale when we started out this year, and this assessment was at 62%. We need to be between 90 and 105%, and it was sitting at 62. So all of Pike Creek Township did see a significant increase. When, after all the adjustments had been made, currently we're sitting at 94% of what the sales sold for. So we're still about 6% less. And a majority of those were, I think there's 3 of them that are within that 90 to 105 and 2 that are still low. So looking at his particular property, we did have the appraiser go out. Actually, I think Brett went out first, and then during the board, there was an additional appraiser that went out. So we feel that the property is that's listed here is worth what we have on it. And so if, the board does have the ability to make any changes that they so wish.
thank you for that.
Further comments, further questions? Commissioner Lemire.
Gene, if you could, for the audience, could you explain how that 90 and the 105%, being that it's a state statute, what happens when you come up with your prices and the state looks at them, and if they're not correct, what can happen? And can you give just a short synopsis of that,
Sure,
please?
absolutely. So we take a look at all the sales come through our office, and we look at those sales, the last 3 months of the year and the first 9 months of the following to come up with our assessments. Those we'll look at per township. We'll array them from low to high, for what the property is selling at compared to what our values are on it. So then we'll look at the middle sale or the median sale. So there's going to be some that are higher, some that are lower. And then we will adjust that to make sure that we're within that 90 to 105%. The state does look at that, and if we're not, if I was not at that 90, above 90% on Pike Creek, they would have come in and just did a blanket, whatever they wanted, 5% on all the buildings or whatever it was. So they do monitor everything that we do, and that would see an increase in everyone's property in Pike Creek if I was not at that.
Thank you for that.
Further comments, Commissioner Jelinski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jerry, I just have to ask if I just need to make sure that I'm on the right page. Pike Creek Township said, no, it stays the same.
I told Pike Creek at the meeting 11-9 wasn't enough, and I was coming here.
Okay.
And I never got a letter from them saying any words difference, but they did allow me 11-9 to take off that at the meeting, but I told them it wasn't enough. I was coming here.
Okay. So they would agree to reduce it from Pike Creek's standpoint.
At the meeting, Gene was there. You were at the meeting at Pike
I was
Creek?
at the meeting, and they voted to deny that
Yeah,
request.
because I told them I wouldn't accept it.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
Further comments, questions, gentlemen?
Just want to clarify one thing. You also said that you had 2 assessors go out there and get assessments on this property?
Correct. I think Brett went out there by himself the first time, and I think he was just allowed on the exterior of the property, and then when the local board was, then they did a walkthrough. Brett, who was with you?
Scott Hinkler.
Okay, Scott Heffler went through as well.
Thank you.
The first time he went out there, I was at work. So that's why it was outside only.
This increase, though, is indicative of properties in Pike Creek Township to bring them into the parameters with state law, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Chair, can I ask just one more question?
Commissioner Jelinski, please.
It's a number question, so, and I think I got it all straight, but if I can ask Jerry. 2 years ago, I think, did you say, Jerry, you bought this property for 110?
Yes.
And then it was at 139.2?
On the 22 report, it says it was listed at $139,200.
That was 2022?
Yeah, on 2021.
2021,
Yeah, on this form right here.
okay? And now
now-
2022?
2022, it says, 2022 taxes you will pay in 2023, the valuation is $193,400.
Which is, if I wrote it right,
$54,200 more.
and which equates to a 62%. Is that correct?
For this past year? Is that what you're talking about? Or from
Yes, I think,
over
I
the last
believe
year?
that's what he's
Okay,
asking.
okay.
Is that-
Year over year value of his property.
Am I correct in those numbers?
It'd be it'd be less than that, percentage-wise.
So we had it last year, for pay 2022, we had 139.2.
200. Yep.
And this year, we have it at 199, or 200,000.
Mine says 193,400.
Yeah, are you looking at the taxable, are you looking at the valuation notice or the tax statement?
This one, this
Okay.
notice. This one says valuation notice 2023.
Okay.
It says 193.4. That's the numbers I'm using, 139,200 to 193.4.
Did I write down the 62% increase? Was that for Pike Creek?
Every house is different. So Pike Creek went up a certain percentage with econ, but before I even start on that part of the township, I will look at anything that's 1-story over basement. I will look at anything that's, 2-story. I will look at quality and construction. So an average quality property would have gone up more than some of the other ones. So it's not just a clear econ adjustment that everyone gets. It's, it depends on the characteristics of each property.
Okay.
So there's a lot that goes into that, not just a percentage.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Wilson?
is there a number of comparisons you used? I mean, is it just is it all the sales in that area?
It is all the sales in that area.
And how, does it say how many there were? I mean, was there quite a-
Yep, we had 5 sales in that area. And again, when we started, we were at 52%, 62%, 71, 60, and 79%. That was with our median ratio of that 62%.
Meaning,
So we had,
if I may, Ms. Pop, that is saying that the valuation, or what the county valued those pieces of property at compared to what they sold was 61% or
Correct.
51%, or so in other words, if we had a property that sold for $100,000, the county prior to that sale had it valued at $61,000. Would that be a fair statement?
correct, yep.
Okay, so to help understand, and as I understand from a little bit of tax law, we need to have 5 sales within that township to make sure that we have a net, basically, or a
Correct.
sample size.
we need to be 100% at all the sales. The criteria is that you need, if you don't have 6 sales, you need to look at the 5-year history. So some areas, we just never will have 5 sales in an
Yep.
area, or 6 sales in an area. We just won't. So then we're forced to look at the 5-year history.
Okay,
So there's different ways of looking at that. But it's not just 6. They will look at all of it.
so of the 5 sales that took place in Pike Creek Township, we did not have any of those properties that sold for the equivalent of what we had, the valuation?
No.
Or can you tell us what would have been closest?
The closest was at 79%.
Which means that properties for sale and with sales that were transacted in Pike Creek Township sold for at least 21% more than what we had them valued.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you. Again, I know the answer to this, Gene, but if you could explain to the audience again, why, Mr. Drellick had a value at 139.2 in the 21-22 season. Why wasn't the prior owner, why weren't we caught up to the 94 or 90% back then, and now you're making that adjustment?
Well, honestly, this last year, we were seeing anywhere from a time trend of 18 to 20%. So from the beginning of the sales period to moving all the sales up to January 2nd of the current year, we were looking at a 20%, on most properties, we were looking at a 20% increase, just for time trend, saying that what sold, 6 months ago, it was significantly higher than what it sold for at the end of the year. So those were added on, the time trends were added on. to that. Was that your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's, yeah.
Mr.
It's-
Chair,
Commissioner Wilson.
was this property bought like from a realtor? Was it a realtor that sold it? Was
Private
it a
sale, private sale.
private sale, not family members or nothing
No,
like that?
it was, I bought it from Harry Swanson, it was married to my cousin. He checked with two realtors to see what it was fair price on it, and what it needed for the updates on the house, plus a new septic system. We agreed on 110. Because we knew going in it was gonna cost 11,000 for a new septic, plus it needed some windows and it needed some new furnace, so we negotiated off of what the realtor recommended him for a price, we settled on 110. Because of the stuff that had to be done.
Yeah, okay, I just was
And when we looked at that property, we did not include that in our sales study because it was not on the open market. It did not go out to, you know, it did not go through the real estate agent, and it was not put on the market.
Further comments? Gentlemen, questions?
I have a question.
Okay,
Jane,
Commissioner Wilson.
When you say that it didn't go on the open market, so do you mean that if it doesn't go on the open market, then that value doesn't work in the comparisons then?
That would not be one of the sales in the sales study, correct?
Because it wasn't on the open market, now it
Correct,
could be a lot
yes.
of other things.
Yes, the state has a criteria that we need to look at of several different reasons why we can't, and that is one, is that, you know, you've got neighbor purchasing from neighbor, and is that a true sale?
Yeah,
And I'm not saying that it was not a true sale, I'm saying that when that happens, we don't know if that's a good sale. So, because it wasn't on there, if it was a relative sale, that would not be included in our market study. So there's different reasons, you know, forced sales, bank sales, personal, you know, so there's reasons why they're not listed in there, but his was not.
Gene, I want to flip that coin over for clarity here. And so what you're saying by what's defined by state statute, so if, let's say, one of the other 5 property owners that were a part of that net that we looked at, that we're taking into consideration, if they were in here in place of Mr. Drellock, Mr. Drellock's property would not have been considered in that group of 5. Would that be correct?
Well, his was in a different sales period, because his was purchased back in 2019. So his would have been in a different sales period. So it would not have been in this
Okay,
study.
okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Gene, if it had been in this study, would it have been included then?
No. No, because it was not qualified as not being on an open market.
Okay, very good.
Further questions, further discussion? Jerry, any further comments you would like to make?
No other comments other than I think the valuation is too high based on what I paid for it, the previous valuation, that 139.2, up to 193.4. You mentioned 200,000, just put me over the edge, but anyway.
Sorry.
Anyway, I'll leave it up to you. It is what it is, but I can't see the valuation being that high.
Mr. Chair, can I ask one more question?
Commissioner Jelinski, you certainly may.
Jerry, just want to ask of you, and you don't have to answer this, and I'm fine with it if you don't. What do you think it should be? Loaded question. If you don't want to say, that's fine. I'm just asking.
I would say, honestly, in the real world, everything goes up. We know every day what groceries, gas, we don't even want to get into the politics of it. But can we afford to live in our houses if we take evaluations from 139.2 to 193.4 in 1 year? Can we all afford to live where we want to live? Or are we just renting the place? Are we? Do we own it or are we renting it? I don't think that this thing should have went up that high. I could live with going from 139 to 150, because I stuck some money in it. I can live with that. Yeah, I took the deck off. What's a deck? You can build a deck in a weekend. I can live with that value. But I mean, that 54,200, that's just unreal. I mean, look at your properties, your own houses. Would you guys all be happy if it went up 54.2 in a year? I wasn't, so that's why I'm here. And this, of course, this is not the house I live in. This is the house that adjoins my house right down the road. And yes, I'm not selling it tomorrow. It's not a flip house. That house is originally on the part of the original Drellick farm. That's why I bought it back. Bought it back from a relative, but it's not a flip house. I'm telling you that right now. It's not a flip house. But, you know, you guys make the decision, but there again, keep in mind what would it be like to you guys if you took a 54.2 increase on yours? You know, you'd probably be here with me too.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yep, that's all I have. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Jerry, could you just give me the sheet that you were looking for at your numbers at, please?
Because I had a question. Are we talking 200 here, or are we talking the 193 that he's talking?
That's what I was looking to find.
Yeah, don't put me over you. When we're at 193. Am I looking at it wrong? Why?
Because included in here is an exemption of your green acres and valuation deferral.
Yeah,
So if you look here, this is what your actual valuation notice is. I'm sorry.
200,000?
And here is, and then the reduction, because you're receiving the green acres on the land.
Yep,
So that's where you're getting the 193 for.
yep.
So your valuation notice is actually 200,000.
Well, I'll just argue about the 193.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Well, we just want to be clear what we're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah,
about.
and that's
Well,
why I
it's
wanted
still-
to look, 'cause-
After Green Acres, it's still
Thank you.
193, so.
Yep.
You guys make a decision. I gotta live with it, but like I say, we'll go from there. Okay. Is that it?
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very kindly, Jerry. Good to see
Yeah,
you.
no problem.
So, gentlemen, next on our agenda, we have James Kostanek Jr. Senior.
I wish I was a junior.
Oh, sorry.
This is my son Jeff.
Jeff?
Oh.
Hey, Jeff.
Pleasure to have both of you here. So gentlemen, I'll read the summary here. Mr. Kostanek and I believe his son appeared before the Hillman Township Local Board of Appeal and to appeal the increasing estimated market value of his property. The Hillman Township Local Board of Appeal and Equalization's decision was to make no change. The estimated market value remains at $150,200, and the classification remains as rural vacant land, not non-homestead, for the 2020 assessment, taxes payable in 2023. At this point, I would like to open this to comments by the Kostaneks.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was kind of curious how you guys come up with the values of the land and stuff. You know, you guys are talking about 5 sales of lands in that area. And what is your assessment on that?
Gene?
So you're in Hillman Township, correct? So we look at, not only Hillman Township sales, but countywide. We start countywide and look at what all the land breakdowns are going for. We try to find pure sales as far as your cropland, wasteland, wooded land. And then once we have that, then we look at each individual township and adjust again from there. So maybe yours isn't as high as something that's down in the southern part of Morrison County. There's certain areas in the county that's higher than others. So we'll look at individual breakdowns first. I know your property had significant amount of waste on it. The waste did not make any, there was no adjustments to the waste. So a majority of your increase was seen on your higher ground. And that's what we've been seeing throughout our sales. So then once, we've got, I think we had 3 sales in Hillman Township over the last several years. Those were significantly low. So if I look at what was sold at that time versus what the valuation is in now, we talk about percentages, we talk about ratios, sales ratios, what property sold for and what we had on them. So we did have one sale back in 2021 that sold for, these are just unimproved. I'm just looking at what is sold. So the sale price was $160,000. We had it valued at $148,500. And so right now, with the numbers that we currently have, that's sitting at about 93%. And again, that's without the 18% time trend, so we're still low on that particular property that was sold in '21. There was another one that was sold in 12 of 19. I can give you parcel numbers. That one sold for $130,000, and we had $100,300 on it. Again, that was, that was significant. That was low. We had another one that sold in 2017. That's getting to be quite old, but we still look at that. And it sold back in 2017 for $50,000. We had 46 on it. So we're still low. And then I did just because you were coming in, and I wanted to see for myself, because if I can't do a township, those 3 sales over those 5 years is giving me that it needs to go up. And so then I just ran another report that just said, I'm going to take surrounding areas, because that's what we do. We look at if it's not just in, maybe it's Lake and Morrill, Lee, some of the surrounding areas that are similar in nature. When I looked at that, we had several sales throughout those townships. If I had the unimproved, the numbers with the sales was at 76%. And if it was improved, it was at 75. So very close between the two. There was only a 1% difference between the two. So we're looking at, yes, I would love to say that Hillman has extreme sales where we have a lot of data to be able to raise those. But if I don't do that, then I look at the 5-year history. What does that look like? And then after that, I look at surrounding areas and what do those sales look like? What ends up happening sometimes is if I don't continually adjust those sales because they don't have 6 in it, what'll end up happening is, for 6 years, 10 years, we're not going to have that many sales. And in 1 year, we have 6, and then it's going to go up 70%. So by making those little adjustments as the data comes in, I can adjust those sales. So it's the ag market, actually ag and the rural vacant land has been really high. They've been going very, very high, strong.
But when you're looking at these sales, are they comparable to the land that we have?
Well, we look at, again, that's kind of where I started with with looking at the peer sales, what that looks like as far as wasteland. What is the woods going for? What are the cropland, the high cropland, low cropland? What are they going through countywide, and then adjusting that down to your neighborhood. So yes, I wish I had more pure sales. I wish I had 6 sales of all cropland where I could just, I would have that data, but I have to search further for that. So currently, it's We do have yours broke down into specific, if it's cropland, woodland, pasture land, high, low, waste. That is on your,
It's right on the bottom here.
yep, that's on your
But, okay,
information.
I got an app here, we can draw circles around the
Yep.
highland and stuff.
Yep,
So you- just kinda
well,
curious.
and sure, and I can show you what we have as well.
Yeah,
So, we need to, in order to treat yours like everyone else's parcels, we will have cropland A, B, C. We will have pasture A, B, C, depending on the soils as well. So we need to make sure that, those pastures and those highlands and lowlands are, woods are gonna be different than, pasture land, and brushwood's gonna be different than wasteland, so we do have it broke down, so just going high-low would be very difficult to compare. Because we don't do that for every other property, so we have to compare yours to others.
okay, so if you took that land in the straight south of us, there's 240 acres owned by the same guy,
Okay?
and I did the values of those, looked them up, and you were in, ours is on quite a bit higher.
Okay. So yours is at 150? And again, we would have to discuss specifically what their breakdown is, and I can certainly do that. So the 219, so yours is how many acres?
They claim it's 93.
So the one that is southwest of yours is a 40-acre tract,
Yep,
and that's at 61.8. And,
the other one would be southeast. That's another 40 right beside.
yep, and that one's at 37.1.
So when I added those two up, came per acre,
No, we can't go per acre. We can go total value of 40 versus, because each acre isn't exactly the same. So we don't look at it that way. We look at it as, do you have a waste? Because if you average something that's not the same, it's not an average. So if you have all tillable and you average that land and you have all swamp or part meadow.
but they're very comparable lands, is what I'm trying to say.
Right, but we would have to look at specific breakdowns on each one.
That's fine.
Yep. So. And your total was? Yep, so there's about 50,000, so I'm assuming that there's more high ground on yours than on theirs? I'm sorry, I wish I had their field card so I could look at it. Going through screen to screen isn't
I mean,
always
I
the
come up with
easiest.
41 acres of wooded land. And I think you guys got that a little bit higher. You got 4 acres, you got 29 and 20. Then you got a wasteland, 38.75.
On yours?
Yes.
Okay. And honestly, it will depend on what, the breakdown on theirs, and I can let you know what that is, but it's not going to, so the one parcel, the 140-acre parcel, that's the lowest. That has 12 acres of brushwood, and it has 27 acres of waste. So that one is almost all lowland. So like almost
12 and 27?
12 acres at Woods D, which is brushwoods, which is something that you know, that's gonna have brush on it. But it won't withstand any kind of growth of trees. And then wasteland, so that,
What was the wasteland?
27.
So 12 and 27, does that equal to 40?
And then 1%, and then one road, and then one road.
Yeah, you'll have an acre figured in that
For
for
road.
access.
Where?
I don't have my, there's no road access to that lower one?
No,
There's no road on either side?
no,
Okay.
all private property on either side.
I mean, there's an access to get to the
Oh, that's what it would be.
1 acre? That seems high for just a driveway, isn't it?
Well, we can look at yours and see what yours is. I mean, we just calculate whatever the road is times your 23 or 33 feet and divide it by how many acres it is, and that's how we come up with your road.
See, I wanted to put a road in there on the southwest corner a number of years ago. And, because we wanted to harvest some lumber in the back part of it. And the DNR says I couldn't do it. I said, even if I put 2 culverts in there so the water is equalized on either side, I couldn't do it. So that land is, in the back part of that, is inaccessible to us. We have to go on private land to get to it. And yet it's being valued at the same level as the other land. The other thing, you had mentioned pasture. That hasn't been pastured since the DNR drove a pickup into high grass and burnt out the whole area a number of years ago because it burnt out all the fence posts. In swamps, you put wood fence posts in, they'll last longer and stay better than steel. And every one of those got burnt off. There was no payback on that or anything. So it has not been a pasture.
So what is currently in that land? Is there trees in it?
Trees, yeah, some trees.
Okay, so would you say it was more wooded than pasture?
Well,
So what would you call it?
It
It's-
hasn't
it's
been
not-
pastured for, I don't know, how
Okay.
many years ago was that?
But would you consider the land then just woods?
Yes,
So currently in Hillman Township, the pasture that we have valued currently is at 1,890, and if you go to woods, it would be at 2,550. So it
there's no
actually,
$2,000
would
worth
you-
of wood on that land.
but it's what we're identifying as what that acreage is, not as how much you could
Well,
get
you-
off of that land. Where
what you
we
got-
look at sales, not at.
Mr.
Go
Chair, if
ahead.
I may, maybe one of the assessors could kind of weigh in to help this thing go a little more smoothly.
Well, and
Trying
Yep.
to figure out what,
Yep.
we got woods down here, woods here.
Woods D and Woods C. So Woods C is gonna be your, more, like, lower grade of popple trees. Your Woods D is gonna be the brush, so, and then the waste is something that you're just not gonna walk on.
gentlemen from our assessor staff, can you help shed some light on this? You've been there.
Sure, all right, I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna step back just a second in the conversation. When you were asking about the road, when we're talking about taking 1 acre of zero value for road, that's the frontage along Partridge Road on both of your properties there, the easternmost of your neighbors and yourself. That 33 feet along Partridge Road is what we're separating off as no value. That's where your 1.25 of road comes in and their 1
this pasture, on there, I'll just speak to that. That's on the lower portion in our aerial photo, cause obviously I am not tromping around everybody's 93 acres when we're out reviewing, so they use a lot of aerial photo to get our information from. And this was in 2020, so it is a couple years old. I'm not sure when you're speaking of the fire that they put through there. And it looks like there's a clear fence line and all of that with some brushy stuff in there. The neighbor to the south, we're valuing that as pasture. That area is very similar to the neighbors. To be equal, we're gonna value that property as pasture, because that's what the neighbors are being.
There's water in there.
Yes?
There's water in there. How can you value that as pasture? Something the south edge.
Just because it's it's exactly the same thing as the neighbor to the south, and that's valued as pasture as well. If it's not active now, I guess I was not aware that it was not active now. But it's pretty prototypical. If they were to sell that property and there's a fence line there, I'm pretty sure they might market that as pasture land, on the market itself. And then, was there did you have any other questions about the way I have the land broke down in particular? The woods D that you see on yours has been really figured, that kind of meadowish area along Partridge Road. Yep, go ahead.
Brian, did you want the map you have?
Yeah.
Oh, you got it, okay.
Thank you. Yep. Sure. Yep. Yep. Sure. Yeah. That's all me doing that in my head. What did you come up for? 25. Four words. And as you can see in there, you're including the pasture to that, and that is just fine. And if you look at ours, I'm coming up with about 53, but I'm also including, sorry, I'll let you look at your phone there. I wish we could be showing. This. This here portion down here, this is still what I would be calling woods D in this, and well, this part is kind of part of this. Well, I can only go by with what I have in front of me, so we can. We can discuss that, and this is what I have. So, this was, even though it's brushy, being the landowner myself, I get it. You get this brushy aldery stuff, that's a swamp, that's waste. You put that on the market, that's deer habitat and all this stuff. People pay more for alder swamp than they would a cattail swamp. So that's why we have that woods D. We discussed that, and you certainly can discuss that with the board. I just wanted to clarify with where our numbers are going, and if you wanted to look at how I have that broke down. On the southwest corner, yes, that is part of it.
So,
I broke it down. So this, be sitting,
It's included in what is deeded and mapped out.
and this is the front part. So this is what I got, that's what they got.
so we'll ask you guys to go back to the table. I'll give Mr. Kostanek his time there. Then we'll talk about our differences in how we classified this.
I've got the original survey
Mr. Chair, I want to, if I could say something?
Commissioner Lemire.
We got to remind ourselves that it isn't Gene's job to be bringing the facts forward to deter their claim. They're supposed to be coming here with the facts for us to change the decision of the
This is
assessors and the
included in
assessor
that.
board. So I don't think it's fair to Gene that she's put on the spot like that.
And thank you, Commissioner Lemire, and that's a point well taken. This is the responsibility of the board. My apologies
Oh,
to-
no,
to-
that's fine.
to you, Gene, and gentlemen, and I think the question, well, I'll open this up for questions from the board, but Commissioner Wilson, before I go to you, I guess I'd like to maybe establish, Mr. Kostanek, you had said you view a difference in classification on some of this property.
I just didn't know how they classified it, because I just got a bunch of numbers, like Woods D, Woods C, I don't know what that means.
Okay?
So, and then she explained that to me.
Okay, and so we have I'm hoping you have a better understanding. As we look at this here, we have 4 acres that would be pasture land, 29 acres of woodland, Class C, 20 acres of woodland, that's Class D, and about 38 3/4 acres of wasteland on there. So, so basically, almost 39 acres of your 93 is considered to be wasteland, and I guess I'm understanding you're maybe disputing the fact that you claim that more of this land should be considered or classified as wasteland than woodland or pasture land. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wilson.
Gene, do we have any information that the town board, when they made their decision, what their conversation was about on this? How they made their decision, was there anything brought up? Because they're kind of aware of the neighboring properties, probably a little more than we are at the time.
Correct. If you don't mind, I will ask Brian
Yep,
to
okay.
weigh in.
Mr. Zirk?
Yeah, we just discussed the land breakdown. Again, we had the pictures there at that time. It looked a little different than what we have today. And at the time, I don't wanna put words in Mr. Kostanek's mouth, but he was really concerned about this western part of his property that he would call inaccessible because of the swamp in the middle. And that back portion should be valued less because he can't reach it. And, at the board, they had asked what I thought about that, and I can't differentiate that woods from the front woods. We don't do that anywhere else. He has access to it because it's all his property. The difficulty of access, we don't value, because there's swamp in between. And the board seemed to agree with that at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
I have one comment there. Yeah. Now, they classify as pasture, but you said there's no fence. So if there's no cattle in there, it's not pasture, it goes into a different classification then? I mean, if you would change it, because there's no cattle?
No, not necessarily. It's what does it look like? Could it sustain? I mean, woods are thicker, pasture is trees, but they're thinner. So fence or no fence, it would still be a pasture,
It wouldn't-
eventually it'll probably grow up into trees and it'll become
It wouldn't be
woods.
classified as recreational land because you're hunting on it?
It is considered, isn't it?
Well, the classification is different than how it's being valued.
Okay,
So we would be valuing what is there.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Further comments? Gentlemen? Anything? Mr. Kostanek.
Yes, I found out tonight that there's a portion in the southwest corner of this property that is counted in this acreage, that is the neighbors. And this is a whole pile from this property that I've been here before. And I don't know, I got the surveyor's original casting of this and everything, and why it was recorded this way, I don't know. And I don't know how many acres are involved in it. I got the dimensions. It's probably not a lot, but it's 130 on one side and 102 on the other side. And then the total length of it is 932 feet. That used to belong to Haverleys, who lived on that farm there for many years, and now I don't know who lives there.
So if I understand you, Mr. Kostanek, you're claiming that the county is valuing property on your valuation that is not your property?
That is what I found out tonight when I asked, you said it was included in there.
Mr. Chair, and
Commissioner Wilson.
I don't even know the answer to that, but that probably wouldn't be a discussion for tonight. If, I don't know that, but I'm thinking that if you would find that there's some land that's not his, that would be adjusted on his valuation if it was given to somebody else, if he could prove that, or am I wrong on that, or at some other point?
Correct. I'm sorry, this is the first time that I'm hearing about this, so.
Okay,
I
so I
have
mean,
not.
but we would still rule on this here, and then if that piece of property, for some odd reason, would be looked at and it's not his, then that would go to whoever it is, and it'd come off of his. Is that how that would work or not?
I believe that would be a survey and a recorded document to adjust those values, or adjust those acreages.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wincher.
Well, again, I think we're getting off a little bit track here, but like you said, you had a surveyor there, and I know out in some of these areas out there, there's some challenges with the surveyors and whether they record it. Now, we do have somebody out of Stearns County that will come in and, okay, you can look at it, it makes no difference who did the survey or whatever that is. If you question that, then he'll get involved, but then at that time, that, you might gain acreage, you might lose acreage, it could stay the same, but in that case, that ruling is final. Correct on that one. I think maybe Amy can help me out or somebody there, so.
And we would have to bear the cost of the survey?
I believe so, yep. Or you get your neighbor to get in with it. Again, I'm just throwing that out there. I think we're getting sidetracked here, Mr. Chair, as far as how that works, but I'm sure Land Services or somebody would be happy to look at that for you on that, Mr. Chair, so I didn't mean to.
Thank you, Commissioner Wincher. I'm looking at this from a procedural standpoint, that if there was a discrepancy with identification of the property lines out there, would the process be that that the county would have a further look into this, and if an adjustment would be made, it would be made on an abatement, or how confident are we that we are evaluating the exact parcel of property there?
In order to make that call, I would have to know more specifics on what that is. So, may I just ask?
Yes.
Okay, so you have had a survey done in regards to this?
Yeah, we had originally, and spent over $2,800 to do it.
And was that something that was recorded at the county?
I presume it was supposed to be because we transferred the property over from my dad to my name and my children's name.
Okay. So sometimes it does get included and sometimes it does not. So if it has not been recorded, then the county would not see it as a survey because we wouldn't have that information. So that would be the first step, to find out if that was recorded.
But I'm pretty sure it's been recorded because they added that other section on there.
Okay. And again, Chelsea, you might help me out, as far as what their steps would be to look at that?
Sure, on the property tax record side, we would go off of the latest deed recorded. So if you had a survey conducted, with the most recent information, we wouldn't have that reflected unless it was recorded in the recorder's office. So our records are maintained by what is recorded, so we could check to see what the latest was on that parcel.
Okay. You done?
Pardon?
You done?
I guess so.
So, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jelinski.
if I may, guys, besides everything else that you're here for tonight, and I get it, been here before, you're now questioning, do you really have 93 acres, or do you have hypothetically 90 acres? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep.
And you're wondering, if it's 93, should you be paying that amount versus if it was 90, should I then be paying, just saying out loud?
Yeah.
It's at 150,200 right now, but if it was 90 acres, it would be 150,000, just using a number.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about for this second?
Yep.
And you would like to get that acreage, I would, if I was you, squared away.
Yep.
So with whatever would be added to or subtracted from, I think that's a relatively good thing that what we would have is, for our people that do the job is, and I'm not pointing the finger at anybody because I don't know the answer, that we should know what we're evaluating. If we're evaluating 90 acres, 93 acres, 105 acres, I don't know. But that's what I would, if I was in your shoes, I would want to know that. And it sounds to me like you're getting a little bit of direction to go to get that part of the answer.
Mr.
I
Chair?
can't see a top value for acreage we can't use and don't have access to.
I understand, I understand that.
Ms. Pop.
Definitely contact our office. We can look at specifics, if it was recorded, how it was recorded, what the legal description said, then we can decide if there's anything that can be done or should be done in regards to that.
My other thought with this too, and only because we've run across this, at least in my short tenure here on the county board, where we've had property owners who've assumed that survey documents had been recorded within the county, and that a surveyor had taken care of that responsibility, and it was not followed through, and it was not the fault of the property owner necessarily, but it did create confusion into what is recognized by county government as far as where is the property and where are the property lines from what was paid, paid to a surveyor to find those corners or find those lines out there, and then have that recognized by county government. I'm not saying that that's what's happened here, but I'm saying it could be something that has happened here. And I think we're kind of playing in two different sandboxes here right now, gentlemen. I say that to you with great respect, in the sense that there's discussion about where the property is and how much property is there. And then also, Mr. Kostanek Senior, about, you have questions with the valuation of some of said property. And so I think there is the opportunity for further clarification on your property there, to within departments here of land services. Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you. And then Mr. Castani, you're both there, but anyway, to help you guys out too, and everybody, do we make a decision today, tomorrow, based on what they're telling us, the 93 acres, that's what we have to move forward with that? Or can we wait and let them, maybe talk to whoever and say, hey, it's only 90 acres, but what I'm still reading, you have 93 acres there supposedly or not, you still feel that it's overvaluated because of you can't access the one area.
The excess land and the unaccessibility of the land to use it.
All right, and so are we make a decision or can we wait? It might take them a month or two to get the.
Yeah, anything that's done after you've closed the meeting is complete.
Okay. And I hope they understand that here too, so.
Yeah, one more question.
Certainly.
I don't know if you guys know the answer or
Certainly.
not. But the fence line, there's fences in the back of that parcel. And when we did that survey, it showed, and we got a print on it, that fence line should be another 75 feet off of that. But I always thought there was a 100-year-old fence line, and that was the property line. Is that true, or?
And that can be a loaded question, but,
I was just kind of curious.
here's how I look at it. I own farmland and farm, and I own property. To me, the telltale sign of where is the property line is the markers in the ground that have been set there, or the measurements from known markers. A lot of times those are markers that are placed in roadways and they are permanent markers, and then there's measurements off of there. Those don't get moved, and they never should get moved. Fences get moved, and they get moved over time, and we can make assumptions that a fence is 100 years old, and maybe there's been a fence in this location over the last so many years, but there may have been a fence that was prior to that. As you say, 75, it could be 75 feet away. And I think it's my advice is that it's dangerous when we look off of things like fence lines as saying that this is where the property line is, because we could have two individuals who have no clue where the property line is decide that we're going to build a fence here and we're going to throw some cattle in there, and especially the tougher the terrain, the harder it is to exactly find where that is. I don't know if that helps you at all, but I would. That wouldn't surprise me, and I think this board has noticed that, and this board in this county has spent significant money over the last number of years in establishing locations of corners for sections in townships, and the need to do that to provide certainty to property owners out there too. But also, there's also responsibility on property owners to also identify those property markers or those property lines on their property too. And it's been in my opinion, and I'm careful not to speak too much for the rest of the board, but I look at that as a shared responsibility with county government and the residents in county, that we work together to try and identify where those property lines are. I encourage you, though, to come back and visit with our staff and land services to make sure that there's very, very crystal clear clarification where these lines are, where what we're looking at and valuing is your property. And when we're valuing your neighbor's property, we're not valuing your property either.
Who do I contact?
You can come to the Land Services Department here any day of the week. Our Land Services Director, Amy Kowalczyk, is sitting right behind you here too. But if you'd like to call ahead before to make sure that we can schedule time to meet with you, and we want to help you answer any of these questions that you have. This board will still have to make a determination on valuation, at least on the information that we have in front of us, and I hope you understand.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Pop?
Thank you for your time.
You have my information on those, on the documents. If you want to just feel free to start with me, and then we can decide where we want to, who's the best person to start with.
Okay. That one, or
Yes,
that has your information?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Am I giving you guys one of those papers?
pardon?
You did, you had said something up here, but I believe you took that back with you. You had that, you had that photo on there.
Yep.
But I believe you have that.
Okay, thank you.
So we don't have other appointments then for this meeting?
Russ is here in the audience. I'm not sure if he did not have an appointment, but it's still always heard, so.
Please, Russ, good afternoon, and thank you for being here.
I thought I had an appointment, I thought I mentioned it when I was in.
Oh, that's fine, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Russ.
Hi, everyone. Oh, this is wheels, I gotta be careful. Good. My concern is, my main concern, I have lots of them, but my main concern is my homestead. It's 80 acres, 21 acres is tillable, the rest is CRP covered trees, they're young pine trees. I value from pay 21, that's, for your information, that's parcel 2500270000, Gene.
Thank you.
Value in pay 21 was 344,500, went to 379.3, and now it's at 483.6. It's gone up just a hair over 40% in 2 years. So I started looking, and I know off of Beacon you don't get the detail that they have about the breakdown and that. Started looking at other ag land within 2 miles of my place. There's a 260 acre irrigated potato farm. And I just did average on land per acre. Mine averages out to about 2,900 an acre on that 80. The irrigated potato ground is just over 2,300 an acre. Other irrigated ground in the area averages about 2,900. Some of my woodlands 25, 26, so if that 59 acres of wood, I would think it'd be less than tillable. Anyway, it just seems not right. I wanted more information. I came to local board, I came in here. what was just really amazing to me is on the sales ratio for ag land, irrigated and non-irrigated is thrown in the same pot. And anybody that knows farming knows that irrigated land, if it's land that can put a well on it, it's worth more if there's a well there. I know irrigation equipment's personal property, but the well is part of the land, and you know what rent? About 4 times higher on irrigated than it is on non-irrigated. So for me, it was really hard to see a 260-acre irrigated field valued that much less than mine with a 40% increase in 2 years. Somewhere, either the state needs to or the county needs to start separating irrigated from non-irrigated in the sales ratios and having different sales ratios. We break down pasture, woods, all this. Irrigated should be a class of its own, in my viewpoint. And so I'm pleading with you to however legally you have to do that, something's gotta be done, because those $8,000-9,000 acre sales out here in the eastern part of the county per acre on the land is getting thrown in with mine that gets $50 an acre till rent. You know, it's, the economics just can't do it. So I think 40% increase in 2 years is really unjust. And when I had other land go down, and then this, you know, all mine, most of them went up. But anyway, that area up there has seen some, I feel, unreasonable ag properties increases, because I don't think there's been that many ag sales enough to justify 5 arm length sales in our area. So that means probably some other irrigated lands and stuff are affecting our value increase. So, if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Wilson?
Just brings up an interesting point. I know that we've had some land sell for $8,000-9,000 an acre. Does that sale go against the land, or is there a piece that's for land and other pieces personal property? How do you record that as, is it the sale of property when it sells that with irrigation on it?
The irrigator is personal property.
They're usually split on the real estate. If their attorney and the realtor's doing it right, they usually split out any personal property and only put what the land sold for on the CRV. Isn't that correct, Gene?
Correct. Yeah.
Tom would know that.
Some may not sell with the irrigator, some may, some may sell with the irrigator, but we would remove that as personal property, because that's not adjoined to the land. And I wish I would have known, Russ, that you were coming in, because I do believe we had significant sales up in that area this year.
But
More than
there's
we've ever
sales,
had.
but of actually tillable farmland, I don't think there's been that many that I know of. I know I had one I bought 4 years ago.
And they
40
wouldn't,
acres with 20 tillable, and I paid less than $2,000 an acre 4 years ago. So those arm's length sales, people came to me and said, so it was not a relative earning. So then I see this, and that 40 was 20 acres tillable and 20 woods. So anyway, if you can do anything on that one parcel, I won't question all the other ones. You don't have enough time for that, so.
So, Gene, I have to ask the question, because as I interpret this from Russ, is that whether it's the state or the county, that there's not a distinguishing bound between irrigated and non-irrigated land, and they are lumped together. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is that a directive from the state?
It is mass appraisal, so we're looking at, the sales haven't indicated that in areas that's a strong, I'm sure it is, if you can get water, but if I look at, I don't know, I can't tell you which parcels can and cannot withstand water. I mean, like, you don't know on your property if you drill a well, if you're gonna get water. So how would I determine that there's actually water under there to add a additional value or add?
But as I understand this, if you have if there's let's say there's a 160 acre parcel that has existing wells on it for irrigation, and I realize all the irrigation equipment outside of the well is personal property, but then you have another 160 acre parcel next to it that does not have a well on that. As I interpreted what Mr. Nygren is saying is that we're classifying or we're valuing those properties similarly. And his claim is that the 160 acre that has a existing well on that to provide irrigation to that property changes the value of that property exponentially increased.
And a lot of it, you can see from your own beacon. You can see that there's irrigation on the property, okay? If it's a high sale coming in, why is this so high? You can ask questions. Find out if they have a irrigatable well, and, you know, there's a way of doing it. It's not that complex. If you can break down the low pasture, high pasture, A, B, C, D, whatever tillables, and I'd be curious to know if, I would bet in other counties, they are having a different class for that kind of soil. So.
And my understanding, and I would Mr. Chair, if I.
Please, Jean.
My understanding is that they would add a well and only a well site to that, but it's definitely something I can look at.
Could you check with other counties and find out around the state, or ask the state if there is, supposed to be valuing that differently for the sales ratios? Because I believe it should be.
It would not be different in the sales ratio.
Well, it would should go into a different sales ratio of ag land than just like, maybe it won't, but to me, that's throwing that into my tillable land's values for using sales ratio to determine if it's appropriate would be, there's something wrong there. Anyway.
Gentlemen,
That's your problem to solve.
gentlemen, questions for Russ?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have no other appointments on our schedule. This we take care of.
That's up to you. We can go over the recommendations, or you can make decisions on the first two appointments and then move on. So it just depends on how you want to. If you'd like to do recommendations, we can certainly do that as well.
We can certainly move to that on our agenda here, the assessor's recommendations. And so we'll start with the Drellick property in Pike Creek Township. So the assessor's recommendation is to reduce the estimated market value, gentlemen, from $200,000 to $188,100, which is a reduction of $11,900. And as we said before, this is due to removing the value of the deck that is no longer there, and taking into consideration physical depreciation on the house.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jelinski.
there was one question that came to my mind, and I wonder if it's still okay to ask the question. Is this home, Jerry, on an acre? Is this home on 3 acres? Is this?
10.85 acres.
I'm sorry.
10.85.
Thank you. Good enough. That took care of what I was looking for. Thank you. Almost 11. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, you're totally fine there, Commissioner Jelinski. Gentlemen, comments? Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you. Again, and I appreciate Mr. Jelly, as far as what he paid for something, but myself personally, if I got a good deal or not got a good deal, I'm not gonna take that into consideration just because I got a good deal. Does that mean that I should only, if I do turn around and sell it, well, I paid less for it, so I might as well sell it for less. You have to try to get as big as, the value of what the market is bringing. So personally, I'm not gonna bring in, he paid $110,000 for it 2 years. I'm just gonna look at what recommendations that are given to me and then go from there. So that's my, right now at this time.
Further questions? Gene, going back to our previous discussion and the quandary that the assessor's office in staying in line with state statute to stay in that 95th percentile. If this board was to make a decision to abide by the recommendation from the assessor's office on reducing this market value to $188,100, does that bring this property out of compliance with the state? And if it does, by how many percent?
It does not. His sale was not in this sales study, so it would not affect. It would not affect that at all. So any decision that you make on this property will not have any effect on that at all.
Gentlemen, Commissioner Wilson, you want to say something? Not Commissioner?
I guess if maybe I could ask Tom a question, if you don't want to answer it, but 10 acres in a house on today, I would think 188,000 would be pretty easy to get, but we don't have I don't know what the house looks like or any of that stuff, but, is that what property is going for, Tom, out there?
I would agree with that.
I mean, I'm just trying to be realistic about this. Okay, thank you for that.
Mr. Chair?
Pike Creek Township did get a substantial raise. I happen to live in Pike Creek Township. But it seems that anything that is rural, that's inhabitable, has seen a very substantial increase in the last, since 2020. I would say in excess of 30% in some cases. It all depends on supply and demand at the time. And up until recently, it's been a real short supply.
Of housing.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tom.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Pop?
There is a photo.
Yep. But I still don't know what it looks like.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure everybody's seen that.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jelinski?
if I can read a paragraph off of your opening statement, and this is probably gonna, whether I agree, disagree, doesn't make any difference, but if I can read this, is probably gonna help me be able to come up with an answer, whether I like it or not. The law provides that all property must be valued at market value. Factors other than market value issues should not affect the market value determined by the Board of Appeal and Equalization. Any decisions made by the board must be supported by facts and Minnesota law. The burden of proof rests at the property owner, who must present factual evidence to disprove the assessor's value or classification. And I just needed to read that for myself, and I don't know that it mattered to anybody else, but.
No, Commissioner Jelinski, thank you. You're very correct and you're very timely at reminding us and keeping us on track at what are our responsibilities and what are our guiding principles for this decision-making. And the first line of that paragraph, kind of cuts to the chord here. The law provides that all property must be valued at market value.
And not my law, just for the record.
And
the law.
And we have Mr. Colomb here, we have Mr. Sherling here, and we recognize them as experts in this field. And we appreciate Mr. Sherling's comments that $188,000 for a house and 10-plus acres is in market.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lemire.
I'll make a motion to approve the assessor's recommendation to reduce the market value from 200 to 188,100.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lemire and a second by Commissioner Wilson. Discussion. Commissioner Lemire.
The reason being that I'm supporting this assessment recommendation is because Jean did have 5 houses within the area where this house is located. She used them numbers and got the midpoint and did everything that statute says she has to do and come up with this number. And if we do not agree with that, then we're going to have to either do what the state says that we need to do and blanket everybody, or move forward with this recommendation with the 5 houses used as a reference.
Thank you, Commissioner Lemire. Further discussion.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wincher.
And there was 2 appraisers sent out to this property. They're both coming in, pretty much the same way. So again, that adds the value of what the market is that they're recommending. So I'll be voting yea on this one also.
Further discussion. Further discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion to reduce, or to take the assessor's recommendation in reducing the estimated market value from $200,000 to $188,100, a reduction of $11,900. All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes. So, gentlemen, we move to the Kostonic property. Jeffrey Kostonic and Mr. Jim
Mr.
Kostonic, Senior. Commissioner Lemire.
I'll go by the Hillman Township Local Board of Appeals recommendation and to have no change. Leave it at $150,200.
Second. Oh, excuse me.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lemire and a second by Commissioner Jelinski to follow the advice of the Hillman Township Board in holding the value on the Kostonic property at $150,200. Discussion. Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you. Again, we have to base this on the information that's put out in front of us, whether the appraiser or the surveyor said this or that. This is based on the information that's given to me that we have. And again, this falls in that between a 90 and plus. So again, that's a state statute, and therefore I'll be also voting affirmative on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Winchell. Commissioner Jelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just ask, I'm going to be voting in favor of this also. I would just still ask the question, and I'm not clear on it at all. If this is based on, and I think I have it right, 93 acres allegedly, if it is found at a later date that these people own 105 acres or 82 acres, doesn't make any difference, more or less, is there a process for them to have this value reduced? I don't, maybe it's a crazy question, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to even put it.
The way we look at it is going to be that the property owner has received notification that this was his legal description, that these were the acres that he has. Bringing that to us, making any corrections on that, the property owner has to do that.
Yep.
Once that's done, then we take that number moving forward. So if they were less 4 acres or they gained 4 acres, we would move that forward for next assessment.
It would not, thank you. It would not change what we're doing here at all right now, because this is the information we have? Is that, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, very good. That's all I needed to know.
For the discussion, my only comments with this is I want property owners to be very clear about the property that they own, the property that we value, and the property that they pay taxes on, just as I look at this as a responsibility of property owners. I am hopeful that the Castonics will come and seek to find clarity and utilize county staff to help answer any questions they have going forward. Gentlemen, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by, I apologize.
That's fine. The only thing I want to make very clear, that the county records what's given to them. The county does not have to prove that this is right or wrong. That's a whole different step in the process. That what we do here and what her tax information is what's recorded. And there's a lot of property out there that's been surveyed that's not recorded. So I just want to make that clear before we do that.
And Commissioner Wilson, thank you, and thank that's you're indirectly correcting me, and I'm recognizing that in the sense that I mentioned something that is not necessarily part of the motion or the action that we're taking in approving the valuation of this land, but also into respect of residents or property owners in Morris County who come before us. I think we also, as a governing body, we have responsibilities to help the residents of the county. But Commissioner Wilson, thank you for clarifying.
The intent was not to correct you at all, because that had nothing to do
Well,
with it. I just want to make sure that people are aware that what the county, what gets recorded is what we use.
Yeah, and I should have, Commissioner Wilson, I should not have made a comment at this point in time in procedure. We had a motion in the second, and it is, and that action has to do with the valuation of that property. We will take that vote now. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion prevails. Commissioner Wilson, thank you.
Well, I didn't mean to correct you.
No, that's, so, gentlemen, we also have the Manka properties. This is parcel number 29.0636.000.
What about Mr. Nygren's property? Do we need to vote on that?
You know what? Commissioner Lemire, that's a great point, thank you, because I missed that too.
We don't
I got all kinds of errors tonight, so thank you guys for your,
No, that's all right.
your patience, and Commissioner Lemire, thank you for your help on that. Let's consider the issue brought before us by Mr. Nygren from Scandy Valley, Cushing Township.
Yes.
So, gentlemen, thoughts?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wincher.
Mr. Nagrin, he really wasn't, I kind of was requesting that we do something as far as his taxes goes, but he's more interested than valuating land that's irrigated higher than what land is not irrigated. And I think he makes a great point there, but again, as Gene said, it's based on the land, not the personal property that's in it. And is that right? You know, that's another story. So I don't know if there's really
I don't think we have one here, do we? We don't have a recommendation
Right.
from you to
Yeah.
reduce anything or anything.
Don't we still have to make a motion on whether to leave his valuations the same or not?
Mr. Chair, yeah,
Ms. Pop, please.
yes, he did appear, so we will have to decide on that. I did talk to Russ. He came to the local board. He had a lot of questions. I had spoken with him because I wasn't able to attend that meeting. He said that he would contact me before the county board. I reached out to him once. He said he would call me back, and he did not do that. So exactly what his concerns are with that is all I've heard is what you've heard here tonight too.
Do you, Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Lemire.
Gene, do you know what the recommendation of the township, the local township board was?
No change.
Okay.
That was in understanding that he was going to contact me between now and then to discuss things.
Well, I'll make that motion to leave it as what the township recommendation for Mr. Knight.
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Wincher, a second by Commissioner Jelinski to approve no change to the valuation on his property. Is, you know, a discussion. Gentlemen, anything? I guess the point, gentlemen, that I took from this with Russ's dialogue was I think he's looking at maybe a longer-term look into what's happening here with classification, that maybe the state would send a directive to have a separate classification for recognizing irrigated land versus non-irrigated land. Would that be a fair assessment, or a fair interpretation? What would you say, Ms. Pop?
I believe so. I think he's looking at what buckets those go into and how those get adjusted, and if you've got some that are unirrigated, are they different than the ones that are irrigated, and should they be in different, you know, they have productive, non-productive, they've got so many different ones that they have. So is it an area thing where, you know, Morrison County has very, you know, it doesn't have, I mean, some portions of it has a lot of cropland, some doesn't. Up in Scandia Valley, you don't have a lot of that. You know, you don't have really big tracts up in that area. So it's something I can certainly take to, you know, take to our property tax compliance officer and discuss with him moving forward to see if there's anyone that's ever discussed that and if it's something that they would consider looking at.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I ask just a question?
Certainly,
Do they have
Mr.
any
Klum.
classification for, like, there's more tiling going on? It's like southern Minnesota, they have nothing for that either? 'Cause I know they pay more if it's tile than non-tile, but.
So for us, that's gonna be more in our, how our soil type is, and are you going to be, you know, cropland A, B, or C, A being the best, C being, you know, that's gonna be in there. However, recently, cropland is cropland. And we've got them split up, but currently they're all the same value because we're not seeing that difference between really good land and not so good land, because it, so
It all brings good money.
it all brings good money.
Yeah, understood.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion prevails. Gentlemen, now we go to two assessors' recommendations. The Manka Properties, parcel number 29.0636.001. This is
Mr. Chair,
Scandia Valley Township. Commissioner Lemire.
I'll make a motion to recommend the assessor's office recommendation of reducing the valuation from 465,100 to 427,100, a reduction of 38,000.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lemire, a second by Commissioner Wilson, to approve the assessor's recommendation. Discussion. Commissioner Lemire.
I just want to say that even though the Scandia Valley Township Local Board of Appeal and Equalization, they said their decision was to make no change. After their decision, our appraisers viewed the property and they found a reduction in the value because of the physical depreciation of both the house and the garage, and also that the basement value should have been reduced to having a lesser quality finish than what was on file. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lemire. Commissioner Jelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Simply a point of order. This is what I heard, and I may have heard wrong. The parcel number is 29.0636.000.
Correct.
Not 001. I heard one. Did I hear right or not?
Yes, I heard one also. But our documentation
Says
says
zero.
36.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's all I had. Just was,
Thank you, Commissioner Jelinski. Further discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to reduce the value from $465,100 to $427,100, a reduction in $38,000. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion prevails. We have one other recommendation. This is on a property owned by Kenneth and Carol Merton. This parcel number is 36.0160.000.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lemire.
I'll make a motion to approve the assessor's recommendation to increase the market value from 290, or increase it to 299,200 from 27,200, which is an increase of 272,000.
I'll second with more discussion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lemire and a second by Commissioner Wincher. Discussion. Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you. And the big thing here on this here, it states omitted. There was a brand-new house omitted from this here original 27.2, so that gives it a pretty good reason for an increase, especially with the cost of construction.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Wilson, help us out.
I'm just curious why we would be doing one to raise it. Didn't their tax statement come out, or was that wrong on their tax statement, or, I don't know, I'm just curious why we would be, okay, you can answer my question.
Ms. Pop.
Yes, thanks. This was actually brought up. Our permitting system is only through the county, so the cities have their own permit system. The only thing that we have to do, we contact them, we send them letters, we call them, we email them. The clerk for Flensburg had changed over and duties had not shifted with them. When we contacted them, they told us, or they didn't respond, notifying us that there was any new construction that was built. So we did get a phone call from the mayor and said that this property should have been picked up on permits. And so we're looking into that. But it is, if there's something like this that is omitted, the property owner does know that we were out there, measured it up, does know what the number is. Wanted him to make sure that he was aware of what that number was, so if he did contest, he was able to be here tonight. And that was,
Sounds good, thank you.
yep.
So gentlemen, this property is located within the village of Flensburg. And this is a good example of units of government working together. Obviously, with this property being valued only at $27,000, this has an impact on revenue for the city of Flensburg, or the village of Flensburg there too. And this is just a good example of communication between governing bodies. Other comments, questions? Commissioner Jelinski.
Mr. Chair, just one more time. The owner of this property has been notified.
Correct.
And is aware that the conversation here tonight is to increase his property to $299,200, which I've been very clear is rather than $27,000, and I'm very clear on all that. But the property owner is aware of this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
They chose not to come and contest.
They're not necessarily contesting. The correction is there, but nonetheless, it's there. Okay, very good.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion prevails. Is there any other business to come before this board?
After the adjournment, I will need signatures.
By all of us?
Yes, please.
That's right, forgot.
Gentlemen, any further business? Any further business? Seeing none, we are adjourned at 6:53.
This is all the paperwork.
I'll need everybody's signature, please.
Want to pass it this way?
Yes.
Gene, thank you for all the work you did.
Thanks, Greg, for.
I've seen 3 parcels, sorry.